What led to Wits University incurring its first deficit in 11 years? What prompted Wits to increase tuition fees by 8% for this year? And to what extent has the insourcing of services impacted the institution's costs? How much has the registering of students with historic debt affected universities in general? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. The University of the Witwatersrand is facing a financial crisis and is reported to be facing its first deficit in just over a decade. The institution has attributed the state of affairs to a number of factors. This include last year's fees must fall protests, the growing amount of historical debt, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, and donors defaulting on their pledges. The amount due to Wits is 405 million rand. Late last year, the university announced an 8% fee increase for the 2017 academic year, saying it is the only way to remain financially sustainable and fulfill its institutional obligations. Meanwhile, government has announced that it has allocated 15.2 billion rand to needy students struggling to enroll at tertiary institutions for this year. But what will it take to resolve the tertiary funding issue? We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers 0891104210, and your comments also. Our Twitter handle at question time 24. My guest today is Professor Adam Habib. He is the Vice Chancellor at the University of the Witwatersrand. Prof, welcome to the show, and well, all the best for the year.
Thank you. You too.
There's a perception out there that Habib is lying. These universities have got money and they can afford to enroll our children.
So let me say two things. The first is that I want to correct, we're not in a financial crisis.
Okay.
We have financial challenges.
Okay.
It's not true. We never said we're the first deficit in 11 years. We've had nominal deficits. But it's the first significant deficit in many years. We've got a deficit about 56 million.
Okay.
On a budget of 3.6 billion, that's not a train smash.
Sure.
But what I am worried about is the trend. You can do it 1 year and it's not a problem. But if you do it repeatedly, you will get into trouble. And that's the thing that I just want to clarify. But I do think that there's a myth about these universities have money. And the people who make these allegations don't back up their assertions with facts. If anybody just simply read our financial statement, which is on our website, it says we've got an endowment of 450 million. 250 million of that is committed towards IT, the upgrading of our IT services. So we're running between 250 and 300 million. It costs us to keep Wits open a month, 300 million a month. That takes us to 3.6 billion. Now, we've essentially got 1 month, maybe 1.5 months. We have cash, have 600 million on research funds sitting in this thing. But that's against research money. You have to spend it on research, which is committed research on donor contracts. That's not free money. So people look at the bank balance and they think that that's our money. It's not our money. So, by the way, Wits has got assets. And as I said, it's not in a financial crisis. But this idea that our institutions are rich is truly nonsensical. And I'm not only talking of Wits. I'm talking of institutions across this country. We do not have the kinds of resources that people are alleging we have. And for them to say we have these resources is very irresponsible. Because if they're saying it without the facts and they destroy these institutions, the consequences will be for society as a whole. And so I have been very openly challenging these individuals. The department did an assessment on endowments of all the universities. It itself said there isn't the kinds of money that people are suggesting. So I do think that people must now become measured in their in their engagements around higher education.
Yeah.
And they mustn't make irresponsible statements, because the consequences are you'll destroy our institutions. And then our future generations of our students will suffer the consequences.
Now, in order for you to remain open, you then resolved 8% increment for this year. And while the timing was questioned, people said, they waited for the students to go home and then give them this bad news. Well, at some point, the news was going to be shared with any potential student or even current students anyway. I'm not so worried about that. But you're supposed to open, officially. So what is going to happen?
So let me say again. So 8% is what we increased. That was the recommendation of the minister, saying that we required, and by the way, to be fair to the minister, we had engaged him, and we said we needed a minimum increase in income of 8%. So let me tell you why, in Wits' case, we needed it. 6.5% is inflation.
Yep.
There is an assessment that higher education inflation is about 2% higher. In part because we buy our stuff in dollars and euros. So we buy books in dollars, research equipment, so about 8.5%. On top of that, we did insourcing. Insourcing cost us 120 million per annum going forward. Now, we needed to do it because these workers were paid badly. And if we have a constitution that says we must be responsive to human rights, then we must take it seriously, and we need to pay for that. So that's put in another 120 million, so that's another 3.5%. So we're running by about 11.5%, 12%. We said at minimum we require 8% to actually make this thing. So people then say, why did we announce it at that point? So to be honest, the reason we announced it is we first had to do engagements with a whole series of stakeholders, including student leaders. We could only pass it in a council meeting which happened on the 2nd of December. But I would be lying if I told you I wasn't glad that I was doing it on December 3rd or 4th. Because frankly, it was a good time to do it, because the students were not there. Would you have rather me done it in a time when we had exams and destroy the exams? Who expects me to do something as stupid as that? Now, is that something we should worry about the New Year? Yes. I am worried about protests, but I do think, and what we are saying to students, what we are saying to parents, look, actually Wits needs this. And all of the other universities, all 23 universities increased it. If we don't do it, I told you it costs 300 million rand. At some point, I'm not going to have the money. Would you rather we implode? Would you rather Wits loses and goes into a financial crisis? Because if it goes into a financial crisis, our children will suffer. And future generations will suffer. Look at institutions of higher education which went into financial crisis. They never recovered.
Correct.
They lost the academics, they lost the infrastructure, and they never recovered. Don't do that to our institutions.
Witness, you are in Limpopo. Welcome.
Hey, how are you, Bob?
I'm well. Your line is very, very terrible. Witness, I can barely hear you further. Let me just rather cut you right away. Perhaps you can just redial. Let's hear what you wanted to say. It's very important. And indeed, you can call us on the numbers that are on your screen. Let's hear what you have to say regarding this fee increment, whether you are at a historically black institution. I don't know what Wits is, whether it's a historically white or whatever. 0891104210. Prof, have there been any engagements between the time when the fee increment was announced and now?
Sure. We've engaged multiple times. I've engaged students at university, at Wits University. I've been involved in multiple national engagements.
Yeah.
So the former Deputy Chief Justice Dekhan Moseneke has got a group of conveners, and they've convened student leaders, and we met some of the student leaders. They've aired their concerns to us. I've effectively aired our concerns as vice chancellors and the challenges as vice chancellors. I've subsequently met again with the conveners, the vice chancellors met with the conveners. Today we met with the minister. So we've been engaging in continuous engagements about in December and January in a way to try and get a peaceful beginning to the academic year. I must say, this is important. We need stability in the system.
Witness, you're back. Thank you very much.
I'm back, Prof.
Yes.
Prof, how are you?
I'm very well, Witness.
Fine. I want to start by concurring with you that we must strongly condemn the issue of vandalism to our institution of higher learning. But I want to ask you a question, Prof, as to what is your commitment as an institution towards the realization of free education?
Okay, Witness, thanks very much for the question. Very clear.
So here's the issue. As an institution, we have expressed a commitment to working towards free education. And however, we've said that Wits University can't declare free education because it gets its resources from government.
Yeah.
It gets two resources, from fees and from government. If fees falls, it must get it from government. If it doesn't get it from either, quality will decline. Quality will decline, and our students, our children, won't have a world-class educational facility. And if they don't do that, we won't be able to address the inequalities. So we said we're happy to work with regards to that. We've made some concessions. Last year, we did away with looking at payment plans for registration fees or first fee payments.
Okay.
We make 100 million investment a year towards scholarships for students. We charge students who pay slightly higher so that we can cross-subsidize poor students. You know, last year we gave R1 billion, and this year we'll give about R1 billion with state money and with donor money from donors and with our own money from council. So we'll spend R1 billion on about 22,000 students. But I'd be lying to say I can declare free education at Wits. We're just not doing it. No government, no university on its own ever declares free education.
Is it Charlotte or Shaloko?
Yes.
Oh, Shaloko.
Good day, Prof.
Hi, good day, sir.
Good day, Prof.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm very well, thank you.
Prof, last year we had a protest about free education by the students. So my question is, what about international students? Are they going to study for free or are they going to pay?
Sorry, which students?
Which ones? International students, you say?
Yeah, international students, because South Africans need free education. What about international students? Are they going to pay? Because it's going to be hard for them because they will pay higher fees.
Okay.
Are they going to pay or are they going to study for free? Because it's going to create more problems. Because if my mother says me well, Wits is one of the best universities in Africa.
Yeah, but even those of you who are not international are paid.
Yes, because last year students would protest, said they need free education.
Yeah, but
Clearly, they are not going to pay anything if they say free.
No, they are paying. This year they are paying.
Yes, but last year they were protesting for free.
Free, okay.
For free.
All right, thanks very much.
So let me answer the question. The student protesters have said both. Free education for local students, but also for international students, largely those from the African continent.
Oh.
That's what the demand has been.
Okay.
But I want to make clear that as of now, this is a fee-paying higher education system.
Correct.
I accept that the students are working towards a free education and there's a commission that is investigating alternative options. But until now, that commission hasn't pronounced. And as far as I know, this is a fee-paying education. We get 3.6 billion is what it costs us to run Wits for 12 months.
Yeah.
We get about a half of that in government subsidy, just below half of that. The rest of it is dependent on slightly some donor money and fees.
Okay.
And students pay. And that applies to both international students and to local students. We offer scholarships, but this is a fee-paying system, and I think we must recognize that for now. If I suddenly do away with fees, I'll financially implode the place, and everybody will lose.
Claude, you are in Gauteng. Welcome. Papa.
I just want to ask this question. I'm not sure if Prof will give me the direct answer. I just want some clarity. There was some suggestion about imposition of educational test, more especially to the big companies,
yes.
multi-corporations and so on.
Yes.
So, Prof, what's your view on that, perhaps?
All right.
So I think that one of the proposals that we're seeing around the financing of new educations is looking at higher taxes on corporates and high-income individuals. I think that that's true. I think we have to do that.
Okay.
I don't think you can fund the system if you don't, in part, increase fees on corporates, etc. I think we need to do that cleverly.
Okay.
You can't just do it in 15% in 1 year, but you need to start looking at measured increases amongst corporates and high-income earners.
Prof, I get a feeling here, and really clarify me if I'm wrong. I get a feeling here that you're saying students are actually barking at the wrong tree. You know, when they demand free education, they come and knock at your door.
So to be honest, I'm being very clear. I don't think we can deliver this. I want to be honest with you. I think, I am by the way on record as having said, I understand that we need to refinance the system.
Yes.
And I accept, and I've criticized publicly for many years, that as you were decreasing subsidies, we were increasing fees, and that regime no longer works. We know that that's what the student protests have brought to an end. But we now need to move to a new regime, and the new financial scheme is not going to be determined by Wits. It has to be systemically determined policy-wise by the state itself.
Okay.
And that's what has to be done before anything proceeds.
Andile, you are in Cape Town. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, sir.
Yes. Go ahead.
Welcome, sir. Good afternoon, Professor.
Hi, how you doing?
I just want to check, man, whether the issues of school fees is the respective institution competency or is a government policy. Because I've seen last year that each and every respective institution, they engage with SRC, they don't come up with resolution. On the other hand, government is having a commission to deal with the same matter. I just want to check with responsibility, is it government or respective institution to deal with the issue of the fees?
Thanks, Andile.
I think that's a good question. So at the moment, at the current system, the fees and what the fees are is the decision of the council of the university.
Yes.
However, that council can only make its decision based on what other resources it gets. So if it costs you 3.6 billion to run Wits University, but you get 1.3 billion in government subsidy, now you have to minus 3.6 from 1.3, and you know you've got effectively 2.3 to find. In that context, you say, I raise 500 or 600 million from donors. Now I've got to find 1.6 billion, and that's how you determine the thing. If government subsidies increase, then the reliance on fees decreases. So formally, it is a decision by the council of the university, although the council can only make the decision based on what other income it gets from the state, etc. The commission that has been established is to look at the possibility of a new financial regime for financing universities, to explore, if you like, the feasibility and how to explore the possibility of free higher education. And when we talk about free higher education, we have to understand what we're talking about. Is it free tuition? Is it free tuition and accommodation? Is it free tuition, accommodation and subsistence? Everybody talks about Germany, which has free education. It only has free tuition. You go to Mexico, only free tuition. If you go to Norway, they provide a combination of the other. So we have to think what is possible and what numbers we're talking about, and that's where we need some thoughtful conversation.
Now, one of the things that students have been very adamant with has been not just free education, but decolonized education. And allegations of racism and segregation have been leveled against the medical school at Wits. What is being done with it?
So firstly, do we have a transformation question in our society? Yes. And it would be wrong for me to say that we don't have racism, because there are individual acts of racism at Wits as they are in our society.
Correct.
But I also think that people must start to become measured. When they say the segregation in Wits Medical School, tell me what? Actually, in 2013, I put an admission policy in place with the faculty that said for 40% of students, straight merit. 20% of students are the top students in quintile 1 and 2 schools. 20% of students are top students in rural schools. And 20% of students will be African and colored students from whatever background. So that we get a good mix of race, class, and this thing. Now, when people say there's segregation, which you talking about? What do you disagree with there? You see, when somebody doesn't get in, they say, there's segregation there, I didn't get in. That's a conflict, it's a conflict of interest. Tell me what you think is wrong. Everything, our admissions process is on the website. It's very, very clear. We have a very, very clear process. I have a policy that says 20 people sit and determine every person who gets access. So there can be no shenanigans around this. People make all kinds of accusations. Tell me where this. Do we have a transformation question? Before Roads Must Fall, we issued at Wits a 10-point plan on transformation. From naming to language to curriculum reform. Which part you disagree with?
Okay.
Are you part of that? That's the fundamental. Don't speak rhetorically. Give me concrete messages.
Sidiso, you are in Kimberley.
Yes, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the
how
call.
are you, Prof?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm not so well, man. I think South African people are too lazy. If you want to pay for education, if you know the quality of education, you're gonna pay for it. You must go to these African countries and see how people are struggling for free schools because of free schools. Without any remuneration to the universities, how will the universities function? My little brother is now at the University of the Free State, and I'm paying for him, and I'm willing to pay. I don't want him to go to a free university, not at all. I don't have money, but I want to pay for his university. Because after university, he's going to look for a job at the same government that he wanted the university must be free for him. You understand?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sidiso.
Thank you.
So I entirely agree with that. I mean, look, I'm more open to the idea of a more inclusive, and I think we must make sure that we have the financing mechanisms to ensure that people get access. But if you do not give, and I'm talking about Wits, I'm talking about all universities, the money that is required to keep them open, we still have to pay lights, we have to pay water, we have to pay rates, we have to pay salaries. I have workers who say to me, you know what, we want free education, but we want increased salary of 6% or 8%. They're even saying sometimes 10% and 12%. Now, tell me logically, how do you on the one hand say, I want increased salary, I want more for lights, water and electricity, but now I don't want to give you money to pay for those kind of things. That's the point. You can swear Adam Habib as much as you want. You can swear Aaron Rensburg. Those vice chancellors can only do as much as what is possible with the resources they have.
Okay.
And that's where I think society must be fair.
Now, Prof, as we close, we are a continental show. Some student maybe in Maranda in Zimbabwe there, Tendai Tawasadza, who may want to register at Wits this year or probably apply. Is it still safe for them to do so?
So, firstly, I want to say there's a lot of people who've asked me this question, is Wits safe? I want to say something that is important. We haven't had we've had attempts at arson, but we haven't had any buildings burnt. We've had protests, and we've had some very robust engagement. But nobody, other than this, nobody has been assaulted. Students and protesters haven't assaulted individuals in a violent way that has been hurt. Nobody's been killed. I do think we've got massive protests. And I do think, and you've heard me say, I've chastised protesters to say they mustn't vandalize, they must be peaceful, and they must be operate within the framework of our constitution. But I do think that Wits University and South African universities are safe spaces. I think we need to fix the challenges we have.
Prof, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. From me and the crew, Iva Khotso.